And welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us. We told you guys we'd do a couple of lives. Well, the trade deadline right now is certainly percolating right now. All of the trades we've seen over the last hour, I'm expecting we're going to see quite a few more. The market is finally starting to move with the announcement Cody Bellinger will not be traded. Jordan Hicks, one of the top relievers on the market, if you don't count Josh Hader, looks like he's finally been moved to the Toronto Blue Jays. The starting pitching market's really starting to loosen up as well, with Max Scherzer going to the Rangers, and now Jordan Montgomery as well going to the Rangers. So thank you guys for joining us once again. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Really does help us out. And if you guys are new here to the Upside, make sure you follow us on Twitter anyway. That way when we do go live, you will be notified as well. Turn on your alerts. You can find us at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Welcome back, Mark. Yes, you guys did get Hicks. I think the injury to Romero might be a little bit more significant and more impactful to the Jays more than anything else than what we might have expected. And so I think the addition of Jordan Hicks, we knew they were going to go after a bullpen arm, but going out there and getting a guy like Jordan Hicks really solves some of the concerns that at least I have for the Jays, at least in the time without Romano. Kent, welcome back. You said it was going to be a trade-filled Sunday. Well, yes, it is. We've already seen a few. James, welcome back. Now all Rangers really need, in my opinion, is bullpen. A bat would be nice as well, but Rangers looking significantly better in rotation. Absolutely. The Rangers had a good starting rotation, very good starting rotation, top 5 in all of Major League Baseball for the first month or so of the season. Since then, though, it hasn't been the same story. Injuries, of course, to Jacob deGrom, now to Eovaldi, who lands on the injured list. Sounds like it's more precautionary than anything else. I wonder if they should have just done this originally and just let Eovaldi shut it down when he was first skipped in the rotation. But in either case, he'll probably be back in about a week and a half or so. Corey Seager sounds like he'll be back Monday or Tuesday for the Rangers. Sounds like he's going to try to pick up a bat either Monday or Tuesday. I don't think he's going to spend any time on a rehab assignment. He's not a guy who likes going on rehab assignments anyway. He'd rather just jump right into action, and so that sounds like what might be the case here for Corey Seager. But to answer your question, what are they going to do with all their starters? The saying goes in baseball, you can never have too much pitching. So, I guess that's the case for the Rangers. I think the starting pitching that they have acquired is probably going to be at the front of the rotation right now, at least until Eovaldi comes back, which will be about a week and a half, 2 weeks. Once he does, Eovaldi probably slots in as the number 2 behind Scherzer. Montgomery probably slides in there as the number 3, and then whoever's pitching the best out of the remaining starters will probably get the 4 and 5 spots. Now, the Rangers could obviously go to a 6, maybe even a 7-man rotation, but I think they're going to try to move a couple of their starters back into the bullpen. Looking at Dane Dunning, who really exceeded in that role, kind of his stuff really played up when he was in the bullpen earlier this year. He was the guy that was always on call whenever Jacob deGrom would pitch, just in case there was an injury. He could come in, pitch 3-4 really good innings for you. I think that's one of the solutions there. The other one is going to be what they decide to do with Martin Perez and Andrew Heaney. Heaney, I think, might be very good as the number 5 starter or as a long man out of the bullpen for the Texas Rangers. Martin Perez, I'm not sure I could say the same thing for him. So I think he's probably going to be destined for at least the number 5 spot in the rotation right now. And if he's pitching great, awesome. If he's not, pull him quickly. You got a couple of guys in the bullpen that you can count on to at least give you a couple more innings. Maybe those guys are being able to throw, harder, more effort in those innings, shorter innings workload might work better for the back end of that starting rotation. But the Rangers certainly addressed a concern on their team right now as they're really trying to push forward towards a playoff spot and even a World Series berth at this point. You got to think that's what the Rangers are thinking. The offense has been that good this year, but it's certainly hit on rough times over the last month or so. I think they could use another bat, just like you, James. Michael, welcome back. Cardinals got the Rangers 11-14 and a sinker ball reliever in John King. Yeah, he's kind of a pitch-to-contact guy, ground ball guy. The sinker baller there for Montgomery and Chris Stratton. Stratton we mentioned in a couple of previous lives because of his connection to Bochy. Montgomery, of course, really retooled himself when he was brought over to the Cardinals last year after a midseason trade with the Yankees. He reunites with Mike Maddox. So Rangers front office working with the coaches on the Rangers and just figuring out what works best with the people they have already in place and maximizing that. So I really like what the Rangers have done. As for the Jays, as we mentioned, the injury to Romano I think is a little bit more significant and impactful more than anything else is why they make the move for Hicks instead of going for maybe a lower cost bullpen option. Marlins focused on Jack Flaherty. Makes sense. They could use some starting pitching. Although I think the Sandy Alcantara just pitching back to what we expect him to is going to be all the addition they really need on the pitching side of it. I just wonder how long the hitting is going to hold out for a team like the Marlins. Now, we've already seen the Rangers address their biggest need, which is going to be starting pitching right now, and bullpen help with Chris Stratton. I think they're still going to add one more bullpen piece. They've already got Chapman as well in a really early deal before the deadline. Marlins, I think, should address something similar as far as their offensive lineman, their offensive production as well. Flaherty, I think, is a great fit for a number of teams out there. The Diamondbacks are looking for a starter. Reds are looking for a starter. Dodgers are said to be touching base on a lot of starters out there, so we shall see what happens. Yankees are said to be looking for an outfielder, bullpen piece, and a rotation piece. Not sure they're going to have the ammunition to go out there and make a major deal, but I think they could make a whole bunch of small deals to kind of fill in around the roster. Same thing for the Atlanta Braves. I think they're just going to tinker around the periphery of this team. They're not going to make any major significant changes, although I think they could make one big-time addition by bringing in closer Paul Sewald from the Seattle Mariners if he's ultimately put on the block. But so far as trade grades, I'd probably go ahead and put the Jays as kind of an A, just because they got something they absolutely need right now with the injury to Romano. The cost was a couple of prospects anyway. Prospect package anyway was decent, but I would still rather have Hicks out of the two. I'll put it that way for either side. Anything on the Giants? Not as of yet. Welcome back, Itai, Bryce, and Bush. Marlins also pushing really hard for Gleyber Torres. Yankees want one of Cabrera or Braxton Garrett and 2 prospects. Makes sense. As I mentioned, the Marlins, I think, do need to add some offense. I think the Red Sox are going to sell Adam Duvall and they could sell James Paxton as well. Seems like their names are being brought up today in a whole bunch of trade rumors. So appreciate you guys joining us. Let's kind of head over to baseballtraderumors.com and just see if there's anything else breaking since we joined you guys on the air. They got Kloffenstein and a double-A right-hander, Robercy. Not sure how to pronounce it off the top of my head, but not a bad package for closer with a couple months left to control. Watching the Rangers and Padres game right now, nothing in the bottom of the first. Rangers have run into some really good starting pitching performances from the Padres as they look to stay in the playoff hunt. Musgrove pitched to Jim, Darvish pitched to Jim, and today they got Blake Snell, so kind of the 1-2-3, if you will, for the Padres facing the Rangers this weekend, as Bradford gets the strikeout of Machado to end things in the first. Nothing as they go to the second. Well, Sarah, it looks like you're at least getting some decent pieces back in return for what you're losing here. Glad Stratton is gone, yeah. Who do you see the Dodgers getting? I still see them adding at least a bullpen piece. It sounds like they want one more starting pitcher. I was curious about whether they'd have the appetite for another starting pitcher since they already brought in Lance Lynn. But I'm wondering if they just want another starter like the Rangers, to where they might have some issues in their starting rotation. They want to go with a longer rotation for now, give some guys some days off, skip a guy here or there, go to a 6-man rotation, give them some options as far as depth. We told you guys before the season that over the last couple of years, the starting pitching depth for the Dodgers really has been eroded, and they need to rebuild that a little bit. That might be their thinking here at the deadline. There is, of course, the big fish of Justin Verlander. Sounds like he could possibly be moved after they traded away Max Scherzer. I'm sure Verlander doesn't exactly want to stick around for a losing season. He realizes the writing's on the wall that this is the end of his career and he might need to move somewhere else to, win another World Series. Of course, the Mets are going to try to compete next year, so if he decides to stick it out, I guess he's hoping for next year being better. The one big piece that the Mets could offer that could really, jump everything else on the market would be a guy like Alonso being put on the market. If he is, he would immediately be the best offensive weapon on the trade market right now. They would probably get a hefty return for him in return, especially considering his numbers are a little deflated because of a very low BABIP anyway. So you're expecting some positive regression for Alonso. He could be one of the best deadline additions any team could make if the Mets make him available. So they could really reset their prospect pool if they decided to trade a guy like Alonso. Verlander, I think, should get them another decent-sized prospect if they're willing to eat a significant portion of money like they did on Scherzer. But remains to be seen what the Mets will end up doing. Cardinals are finally opening up for business. We heard they were playing a hard ball, and we thought the dam might finally break today, and so far it has. They've made a couple of trades so far, jettisoning 3 players off of their Major League roster. Thinking teams backed out on Hicks because of concern about Hicks' control issues? Possibly. I don't think the Rangers backed out of that at all. I think they just realized they'd really rather have the starting pitcher and didn't want to necessarily give up the prospect capital necessary to get both players. I still think the Rangers are going to add one more dynamic reliever to that bullpen. Somebody that they can put in the 7th inning in front of Chapman and Smith, or maybe even put behind Chapman and Smith if they get a guy like Hader or Bednar. I don't think Hader will be available. I think that's pie in the sky hope right now for any team that's hoping for Josh Hader. But Bednar, I think if you overwhelm the Pittsburgh Pirates with a starting pitching-led offer, I think you really could have a chance at bringing in Bednar. 3 years left to control is the reason why the Pirates really would be hesitant to do that. As dominant as a closer as he is, I think they'd be much better off than just having a closer back there. So I think the starting pitching really needs to be worked on there with Pittsburgh. They've got prospects coming that should be able to solve some of their other issues that they have on this team as far as position players. They've got the Pittsburgh lineage lined up already with McCutchen. They've got Reynolds signed on for the long term, even though he's not playing well this year. And I think Bednar would be the perfect piece to go if I'm a Pirates fan. I think now's the time. Now's the time when you can really maximize that value. Michael, Cardinals got the Blue Jays number 7 prospect. Yes, Cardinals likely asked for Clayton Beeter from the Yankees, and Cashman wasn't willing to move him for a rental. Very possibly, the Yankees really like to do things as far as a bounty of prospects kind of a way. Think of the trade they made for Joey Gallo. They traded away a handful of prospects, none of their top guys, and I think they'd rather have that back at this point because Ezekiel Duran is better than most of the prospects that are left in the Yankees system. I think he's got a higher ceiling than almost everybody in that Yankees system right now, and we shall see what ends up happening for him. Good-looking pitching prospect, but we need Hicks in the Jays bullpen. I agree. Blake Snell looking a little rough. Has had a couple people on in the first. Now he's got leadoff man on here in the second. So in what could be his final start, if things go poorly today and tomorrow for the Padres and they do decide to sell, looks like he's struggling here. But so far has yet to give up a run. We saw Verlander on the mound today. He got the win for the Mets. We'll check in on the standings from around Major League Baseball here in just a moment. Let's go ahead and refresh the page once again, see if anything else is happening. Not as of yet. Ooh, Mitch White designated for assignment. He was a prospect for the LA Dodgers that I really had a lot of interest in as a Rangers fan anyway. Now that he's DFA'd, I wonder if this sets up a trade for Mitch White, kind of a depth, starting pitching, bullpen type guy that could be had for a number of teams out there. But I don't think he'll end up staying with Toronto. He's too good of an arm to be able to pass through the DFA process. Welcome back, Willard. I think Houston needs Verlander. I think they need a starter, period. But in an interview this morning on MLB Network, Sirius XM Radio with Jim Bowden, the GM Dana Brown said they are not looking at the starting pitching market right now. They are instead looking at the bullpen market and for a corner bat, somebody who can step in at both of those spots. I wonder if they end up adding a starting pitcher and then moving one of their pitchers to the bullpen. But at least in this morning's edition in this morning's interview with Jim Bowden, Dana Brown, the GM for the Astros, says they are not actively looking for a starter, at least at that point. Mitch White has been atrocious for Toronto, yes, but I'm still thinking he has enough in that tank, enough talent in that arm to where maybe not a team that's bound for a World Series, but a team who needs a lively arm, something like that, is what I see in Mitch White. So teams that are also sellers here at the deadline could look at Mitch White and say, hey, I'd rather have him than my 25th guy on the roster. But if the Rangers were in the same position they were last year, I would certainly pick him up if I was Texas. Texas right now is trying to compete for a World Series at this point, and so I don't think they'll be able to make a claim on him. Not the way their roster's going to ultimately be constructed after this. Houston does not have the farm system to compete with other teams, absolutely. Although I think they could do kind of what the Yankees did for Joey Gallo, but they'd have to give up their top-end pieces to do so. Could the Yankees trade Luis Severino? I don't think so. I think they're going to have to add depth rather than trade one of their better pitchers. I don't know. I think Severino's had too much. The Yankees have invested too much in him. I just don't think the Yankees could part with him. Look, do you think Houston might go after Mitch Keller and their closer? Again, Houston doesn't have that type of a package available to them. It's not going to happen. Houston just doesn't have that type of ammo. Snell looking a little bit better now. Got a good chase there from Mitch Garver. Welcome back, Warren. Happy Sunday. Are Phillies going to do anything? I think you're wanting your Phillies to do something at this point. If I had to guess, they'd probably get Adam Duvall. It seems like they're the hottest team after him. But it sounds like the Cardinals might have finally opened up the floodgates. We could see them decide to finally get something done. I don't even think if they included Drew Gilbert, they could get one or the other. I think the only way they get something like that is going to be going after a guy like Hunter, or getting Hunter Brown involved in the trade, and they ain't going to move Hunter Brown. So as far as those Astros fans out there wanting them to make an addition, they can make some additions, but it's not going to be at the top of the market. So these crazy ideas for Robert, Keller, Bednar, Verlander, you're going to have to give up Gilbert to get Verlander. I think that's the absolute max on it, and that's assuming the Mets give up a lot of money to be able to let Jim Crane be able to take on that contract once again. And there's going to have to be some fence mending, but you're not going to get anybody else at the top of the market besides maybe Verlander. Snell gets another chase here. He does get a lot of chases on those pitches outside the zone. Gets a strikeout of Tavares. Through 1.5. Nothing is the score. Giants need a starter. Well, they've been interested in Verlander. Houston done for because they're pitching besides Valdez, Javier, Hunter Brown in France. You do realize you just named 4 starters, right? That's still a pretty good rotation. They've gotten a lot of production out of a couple of guys they were not expecting it from. I worry about Valdez, being shook up a little bit after that last start with against Texas. We'll see what they do. Yankees will be active. Watch out. Cashman always surprises rival teams. I agree. I think Cashman will be active. The question will be, does he make the right move? Over the last couple of years, could be said that he's made the worst of the moves at the deadline. So I think Cashman got a little bit of an extension anyway because of being able to re-sign Aaron Judge. Gives him a little bit of latitude in that city. But if they miss the playoffs, which I think is very, very likely at this point, unless they get some type of on a huge run or something like that, but they're still in wild card contention. But I think they're going to be on the outside looking in from the teams that we mentioned last night, that Toronto probably gets that final spot, with the Angels being just outside looking in, then the Yankees, and then the Red Sox. I think that's where they're going to end up falling for that final wild card spot. Then next year, I don't really see a path for them to really improve outside of adding maybe a starting pitcher like Urias, or going out there and adding a guy like Shohei. And in that case, I think they again finish about where they're going to finish this year. At that point, then we could see the end of the Brian Cashman era with New York. But I think he got himself a lot of latitude by being able to retain Aaron Judge. True. A little bit of a surprise, but I mean, the Yankees do all kinds of different things than other organizations do. They have the payroll wherewithal to be able to take on some salaries that other teams couldn't, much like the Mets are willing to eat the contract of Scherzer to be able to get a top 20 or a top 50 prospect in the game. Just a good move overall, in order to have that budget to be able to get some things done. Bogaerts gets a leadoff single. This will probably be the last start for Bradford for the Rangers this year. He could be one of the pieces that ends up going for one of the closers that is out there. He's had a good year so far for both AAA, for Texas anyway, and at the big club. The question will be, how exactly do other teams view him? Major League Baseball Pipeline has him around the 20s as far as a prospect. Baseball America has him around the top 10. So a lot of differences in opinion on what the future for Bradford holds. If you're a team that's holding on to your closer, if you see him as a future starter in your rotation, Rangers could really could opt to trade him here at the deadline in hopes of bringing in one of those bullpen pieces they need. Marlins may actually get desperate and pull the trigger. True. Dan Brown is well, I'll put it this way: the ownership group. Well, I say the ownership group. The owner, Jim Crane, really tied the hands of Dana Brown even before he hired him with how he handled the offseason. Then when he hired him, he basically was like a Jerry Jones type of czar over the organization, and I still think he's going to hold that kind of an iron grip over his team. I think Crane was very disappointed in his franchise being dragged through the mud because of the trash can sign stealing scandal. And he never wants to have a repeat of that, so he's basically going to be a hands-on owner from now until he sells the team. So, sorry, Houston, you've had a great run, but I think this might be the beginning of the end with Jim Crane becoming more and more involved. You still have a very good team, but other teams are starting to catch you within the division. Your rotation's starting to look a little thinner. Prospect pool's looking a little thinner. Ebbs and flows of a franchise dictate this might be the closing of your title window in Houston, at either this year or next. I still think they're right there among the top 2 or 3 teams in the American League as of right now. Thank you, Connor, for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Cards didn't even get a top 100 prospect. Well, I don't think they were going to get one for Montgomery. I think they wanted to get more of a package of players. Thomas Sagassi, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but he's got a good future for you guys. So I wouldn't hold out. I wouldn't be too bummed about that. I also like TK Roby, who's, even though his ERA looks really inflated in the minors, his outlying numbers show that he's actually a much better pitcher. So I think you got a couple of really nice pieces, and you got a bullpen piece, and he did all of that for just a couple of rentals. And just think of what you went through last year to bring in Jordan Montgomery. You sent out Harrison Bader. On the whole, I think you did very well from last year, bringing in the better of the 2 players in the trade. And then again, I think you're going to do very well with the 6 years plus of control for those prospects. And then King you might remember John King was part of that Joey Gallo trade originally. and ultimately was not traded because of an injury issue. They instead included Rodriguez, I think was the pitcher they ended up including in that Joey Gallo deal. But John King ultimately goes in a trade from Texas. Mike Elias is a miracle worker. Yes, he is. They got a haul for two rentals. I agree. Especially their starting pitcher today. What a joke. Well, I mean, we're talking about the Astros. They're still a very good team. I think don't overreact too much, Willard. Don't overreact. It's just one game. Like, if you'd been watching the Rangers the last two games, you'd think they'd been one of the worst teams in all of baseball because of how they performed against the Padres. They just couldn't string any hits together. Their pitching was not great in the first game. Really had to go to the rookies in the bullpen in the second half of that game. And then yesterday's game, Perez really had one bad inning, but outside of that, they just couldn't get anything going. Pitching did pretty well yesterday. Jose Leclerc seems to have turned it around for that Rangers bullpen. I think it's going to be the Rangers bullpen going into the postseason. It's probably going to be Smith, Chapman. You're probably going to put Stratton in there, at least for now. If he's able to have some consistency there, he's going to be one of the spots. Spores, who's been productive for them. Leclerc, that's 5. And then it's just kind of who's performing the best, and if they add one more key reliever back there, and then you get to your long relievers like Dunning and Heaney, who are probably going to be shifted to the bullpen for a postseason series. So that's probably going to be your playoff bullpen. Thank you again, Connor. Appreciate that. Welcome in, John. Let's go Texas Rangers. Well, watching the Rangers game right now, Bradford's got a couple on with one out right now. 2-2 count to Gary Sanchez. He's had a nice return to the big leagues, if you will, after it looked like his career might be over after he was DFA'd a couple of times already this year. But he's been very good for the Padres so far. Kind of stabilized things back there behind the plate. You have to think the Reds will join the party soon. Absolutely. I think the Reds add their starting pitcher today. As to who it could be, there's still the two Tigers pitchers out there. A lot of rumors around Eduardo Rodriguez and Michael Lorenzen. I see a lot of attention being paid to Michael Lorenzen and that Baltimore Orioles market. I know we got a couple of Orioles fans in our chat right now. Shout out to you guys. But I'd really like to see what the Baltimore Orioles ultimately decide to do. If they decide to go big game hunting, do they go out there and get a guy like Verlander? I don't think so. I think the Mets would really have to pay that down. But we shall see what happens. Welcome in, Jordan. Jays did add Jordan Hicks. Let's kind of refresh things just to see if anything else is breaking over the last couple of minutes. Doesn't look like it. Bradford gets the strikeout of Gary Sanchez. 2 away now in the second. Rangers just trying to get things through until they get some of their starting pitchers back. Right now, Eovaldi being placed on the 15-day IL. Remember, pitchers have to go on the 15-day IL. Meanwhile, position players have to go on the 10. A little bit surprised they did it retroactive to the 27th. But they could have done it even further, in my opinion. But I think they really wanted to give time for Eovaldi to not have to rush back and make sure his arm is right. Because they are adding 2 starters to this rotation. So even without Eovaldi back right now, they still have 6 starters for that rotation. So they should be fine for at least a week and a half. I agree, Sarah. I love the haul that you got, too. I like the trade that you made overall from the Rangers. Really love the return that you guys got. That's pretty much the package I would have done if I was the St. Louis Cardinals trying to get what I could from the Rangers. I would have not tried to go for one top prospect. I would have tried to diversify it a little bit, and I think you got a really good pitching prospect in Roby. I think you're going to hear his name in that starting rotation for the Cardinals within the year and a half, 2 years, somewhere around there. He's only 20, 21 years old. I still think he's got a bright future for you guys. So Sagassi probably the top prospect that you're getting back in the deal overall. Lorenzen to Reds makes so much sense. I agree there as well. I think the Orioles and Reds are really fighting over Lorenzen. I'm curious about Eduardo Rodriguez, where he ultimately goes. I think he will be moved here at the deadline. It's just a matter of where he ultimately goes. I haven't really seen a team really connected hard in on him as of yet. Thank God Mitch White DFA'd. Well, I think you're going for a postseason run, so I don't think you need to have a guy who's underperforming right now. But I still like the arm of Mitch White, so hopefully he gets through waivers. I don't think he will. I think these teams that are selling are going to go ahead and claim Mitch White and put him back into their rotation or into kind of a long relief role in their bullpen and have him spot start occasionally. I guess Houston is done trading because I don't see any sense at all. Well, I think Houston's going to add at least a bullpen piece or a starter, one of the two. Curious to see what they get. John, any more needs for the Rangers? Rangers, I think, are going to add at least one more bullpen piece, even after bringing in Stratton. I think they're going to look towards the top of the market, though. I don't think they're going to do the penny anything. If they go for the middle of the of the market, I think Keenan Middleton makes a lot of sense from the White Sox as well. So they already got Chapman and Smith that are pitching really well at the back end of the bullpen. I thought they would have really liked to have one more closer type pitcher in this bullpen. If they do that, you're looking at guys like Hader and Bednar. I don't think Hader has moved Bednar. I think if you overwhelm Pittsburgh with a starting pitching heavy offer, I think you could overwhelm them with an offer. But outside of that, I still think they're going to add at least one more solid bullpen piece. Bullpen, they also have not addressed offense. Very true. I think the Rangers could be a team that's in on some of the surprise candidates that could be available here at the deadline. I've talked a little bit about Alonso, but mentioned even before that, Paul Goldschmidt. I don't think that Goldschmidt moves here at the deadline at this point. There's not enough intensity around it, not enough discussion around it for him to really be on the market. The one other piece I haven't really mentioned yet is that the St. Louis Cardinals have a catcher by the name of Wilson Contreras that could be available, because I don't think it's really a match made in heaven for the Cardinals right now. I think the money that they spent, kind of a surprising thing that they did, going out there and spending money in the free agent market to bring in a guy like Wilson Contreras, the issues that they had all the way back in April for him not being able to command that, get that pitching staff right, and I think that's part of the reason why the issues that they've had with that starting pitching staff is because of the inefficiencies behind the plate in Wilson Contreras. Now, the Rangers do need some offense with Jonah Heim going down. Sounds like probably for at least 3 weeks and could very well be out for the season. It's going to be a pain management thing, but surgery will be necessary for the American League starter at the catching spot. And he's top 5 in all of baseball in RBIs at the time of his injury. He's had a real nice step forward in his career. The Rangers are surely going to miss him, but a player like that could kind of fill the hole of a guy like Jonah Heim in the lineup. And if the Cardinals are willing to eat, say, $15, $20 million of the $70 million total on the deal, Rangers could give up another top, 15 type prospect to get him in the house. Then you have Jonah Heim and Contreras next year, to where if Contreras plays really well in the second half of this year, you could trade him after the season is over. But Rangers, I think, will look for at least some catching depth. They already brought in Kevin Plawecki from the Padres in kind of a minor league deal. They exchanged cash with the Padres in that type of a deal. He played with the Rangers at the end of last year. But the catching market with Salvador Perez, I think, could heat up here over the next 24 hours. Nobody's really looking at catching help because there aren't that many good catchers at the deadline this year. Rangers have looked at Tommy Pham. I agree that they do need to add a bat. Tommy Pham would be a nice fit. I just wonder if he's a little bit of an overlap with the guys they already have on the roster, Brad Miller, Robbie Grossman. I think they need to go a little bit higher, a little bit bigger game fishing there, or bigger game hunting anyway. So I'd look at guys like O'Neill. I'd look for bigger bats than that. However, they could end up with that as the last option there at the deadline. But I think if that's the move they make, that's a move that waits until Tuesday. I think we're going to see bigger moves on the horizon right now. Blake Snell walks Robbie Grossman as we talk about the Rangers' need for a corner outfield bat. He's been walked twice now today. Manager Bruce Bochy said he has a really good eye at the plate in the pregame today, and that's why he drew into the lineup today, showing that it's very effective. Snell does like to play around the edges of the zone, tries to induce a lot of swing and miss and chasing, and Grossman's a good eye at the plate. So I think Grossman probably has a fit on this roster for the postseason. Brad Miller, I think, is the odd man out of that 25-man roster for the Rangers once they make an addition for either the outfield or that DH spot. Cashman is looking to get a haul for Gleyber Torres. I think they've had a glut of middle infielders all season. It's about time Cashman unloads some of that. I thought IKF would have been the guy out at the beginning of the season. They opted to go ahead and keep him. Gleyber Torres probably has the best trade value of the guys they're willing to give up. And so Torres to the Marlins, which you talked about a moment ago, does make a lot of sense. 7-0 Reds. Reds needed a win here. They've struggled over the last... I think they've struggled anyway. Let me check at the standings here. Make sure I don't get them... No, it was the other one that was struggling. It was... Was it Miami I was thinking of? Yeah, it was Miami and Arizona I was thinking of that had struggled. They're 7-3 in their last 10. Carrasco could also be available. I think he absolutely is available. Is a team willing to trade for a guy who's struggling and makes a lot of money? No, but a team that might need some depth is at the very end of their starting staff might make some sense if the Mets eat pretty much all of that contract, which they could. Quintana could also be made available, even though he just returned from the injured list. Yankees considering Carlson? Yes, they are. If I were the Yankees, I'd throw in Wandy Peralta in a trade with Torres. In case you guys have missed the news anyway, we could see Corey Seager back with the Texas Rangers. Sounds like he got a cortisone injection into his thumb. They got the splint off. Sounds like they're going to have him try to grip and swing a bat tomorrow or Tuesday, at which point it doesn't sound like he's going to go on rehab assignment at all. It sounds like he's just going to be called right back up to the majors, or at least activated from the injured list anyway. And we'll see what happens. Rangers offense just looks kind of listless without Seager and Heim in there right now. They just need something to go their way here in San Diego to really get this thing going. As prolific as their offense was for the first couple of months, I think this offense needs at least one more piece to kind of jumpstart it just a little bit. Right now they have Thompson up, Bubba Thompson, the outfielder, that's really struggled to hit at the major league level, up for defensive purposes with Jonah Heim going on the injured list. As I mentioned, Heim's going to wait about 3 weeks, see if he can tolerate the pain, and if he can, he'll come back. If he can't, then they'll put him on the shelf for the year, let him go ahead and have the surgery, and see if he's ready for 2024. In case you guys missed the news, the trade is official between the Texas Rangers and the New York Mets. Sounds like kind of a seeing eye single here for Garcia, a little nubber, able to beat it out. 2 on, 2 out now in San Diego. Maybe that'll get something going. Ball that didn't even travel about 80 feet results in a base hit for the Rangers, something they desperately need. But the news out of the Rangers is that Max Scherzer is expected to make his first start for the Rangers on Thursday. He'll throw a bullpen for Mike Maddox back in Arlington on Tuesday when he's expected to join the team. They already had a discussion about, what it's going to look like for him, how they want him or what they want to do with him on the roster. And it sounds like Scherzer is probably going to be your Thursday starter against the White Sox. I'd imagine Montgomery is going to be somewhere around there as well, probably Friday or Saturday if I had to guess, after the acquisition of him from the Cardinals today. Cardinals offered a 3-year deal. He turned it down. Well, we saw the money that Edwin Diaz got last year. I'm not saying Hicks is that, but I'm saying he wants better than a 3-year deal, and I think he could get it in this year's free agent market. There's not a lot of hitting, so pitching is going to be the high-priced thing in this offseason. A lot of top-end pitching options available, not a lot of hitting. As far as the standing right now, the Atlanta Braves right now sit on top of everybody in the NL, completing the sweep today of the Milwaukee Brewers. They've been fantastic. The Dodgers, of course, remain on top in the West. Cincinnati, because of that losing streak for Milwaukee, has pulled even, at least for the time being, with the Brewers. Cubs are on the outside of the wild card picture looking in, but they've won 8 straight. They're 9-1 in their last 10. Things are looking good there. Miami's starting to get a little bit better pitching performances, so they're at 3-7 record in their last 10. I think that'll reverse itself. However, I do think they need a touch more offense. They've already made a couple additions to that bullpen with David Robertson, the trade for Jorge Lopez from the Twins in exchange for Dylan Floro. But I think the Marlins are going to make a nice little push here. I wonder about the Diamondbacks. It looks like they might be the odd team out as far as the team that might fall first among these teams. Welcome back, Declan. How are we doing? Knowing Rangers' best pitching staff ever. This is definitely the best Rangers staff as far as accolades that they've gained. If they can get back to the performance that they were doing back in April, it will be the best Rangers rotation in history. I think next September when DeGrom gets back, you have Scherzer, DeGrom, Eovaldi, Gray finishing out his stint there. If they re-sign Montgomery, this staff is going to be bananas in September next year. But just looking at the way the wild card race is shaping up on the National League side, I think the Diamondbacks need to add a starting pitcher, Eduardo Rodriguez. I think no team has really been connected with him. I think the price is a little higher than that of Michael Lorenzen. If the Diamondbacks are serious about contention, maybe they are the team that ultimately pays the piper for him, or a team like the Giants. Both of those teams are 3-7 in their last 10. They need something to get them going, really. He could be the piece for them to kind of get them going in the right direction. I think Philadelphia, 4-6 in their last 10, is probably going to get one of those wild card spots. I think Milwaukee's probably going to win the division in the Central. Then you're going to be left with the Cubs and Reds, I believe, getting one of those other wild cards. And then it's really going to be Miami, San Francisco, Arizona, I think, for the last wild card. Remains to be seen who gets it, but I think one of those Central teams ultimately falls out by middle of September, and it'll really be a two-horse race between Milwaukee and either Cincinnati or the Cubs for the last spot, or for one of the last wild card spots on the NL side. On the American League side, things are still pretty much the same here. Baltimore, Texas, Minnesota, as it has been for much of the season. Tampa Bay, of course, was in front for much of the year, but they've struggled a little bit. They're 3-7 in their last 10. Really have struggled since the second half of the season. They disciplined Franco for his play, or for something on the field anyway, and so ever since he's been disciplined, where they benched him, they've really taken all the life out of that lineup, all the life out of him as a player. And so I wonder if that was really the right decision for them. Since that time, they have a losing record, and they've really struggled to get something going. And as of right now, I would say Tampa Bay probably finishes in the 5 spot in the American League as far as the wild card. I think Houston ends up leapfrogging them. I think Texas ultimately will hang on to the division, but we shall see. Snell and Hader trade could be similar to Monty and Stratton return, with maybe an extra prospect for Hader. If that is ultimately a package that the Padres are willing to do, Snell and Hader, and they're only asking for that, I would sign on the dotted line right now if I'm Texas. Where do I sign? Tell me where. But I think it'll ultimately cost them a little bit more than that if they included both. If they did, we're talking 3 new starters in that Rangers rotation for Texas. That would be bananas. But there's going to be a lot more teams in the market for a Hader or a Snell. Snell probably the best starter over the last 2-3 months, over the last 10 starts. I think he has a .67 earned run average. Hader's been fantastic all year, has a sub-1 ERA for the entire year. I think Hader by himself probably gets you a similar package to what you got for Monty and Stratton. I think Snell gets you a similar package for what you got for Monty and Stratton as well. Bottom of the third now, Rangers and Padres still scoreless. Rangers going with Bradford probably for the final time this season as a starter. A little bit surprised he wasn't one of the pieces that the Cardinals asked for in return instead of John King. Bradford, I think, has a lot more value than King, but if I were the Cardinals, I'd be looking for major league ready starting pitching prospects as well, rather than a depth reliever. I think if they had gotten the trade to include Jordan Hicks, they probably could have gotten a little bit better prospect return, maybe even included Bradford as the number 2 piece in the deal. But as it stands right now, I still like the return for St. Louis of what they got. Let's go ahead and refresh MLB trade rumors just to see if anything else is happening. I think the market's finally coming to grips that they're going to have to start moving here. We could see a flurry of activity in the next few hours. Make sure you join us tonight at about 8:30 this evening as we kind of recap all the different trade activity that we've seen today. And make sure you join us on Tuesday. We'll be live for you guys all day long, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. 8 o'clock in the morning all the way through the deadline until probably an hour and a half after. So we'll be live for you guys for around 10 and a half, 11 hours. So make sure you join us, hit that subscribe button, follow us on Twitter, Upside Ascent, and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. We had a little bit of fun this morning going over the top trade candidates list here. We've already seen a couple of them go off the board. Jordan Montgomery was number 1 on the list for the MLB trade rumors, deep in the whole play for Duran. That was not a chance of being made. Nice attempt, though. He was 3 steps into the outfield grass. There was no way he was going to gun down Kim there. But Jordan Montgomery was the #1 target on this list. He goes to Texas. Candelario is #2 on this list. Still haven't seen him connected with anybody outside of maybe the Angels. A lot of teams need corner outfield bats. Marlins have been connected to him as well, but I just wonder if he ultimately is ticketed to go to the LA Angels. Michael Lorenzen was #3 on their list. He's probably one of the most likely pieces to go here at the deadline because of his versatility as both a starter and a reliever. Tommy Pham was #4. I think his availability as a corner outfield type DH type of a bat, the versatility he brings, makes him a very attractive piece, but there's a number of pieces like that on the market right now as far as a corner outfield bat. #6 on this list, Jordan Hicks, we already saw move. Jack Flaherty, I think, is probably the next starter to go from that Cardinals team. There has been some connections to the Dodgers. There's been some connections to the Diamondbacks. There's been some to the Marlins as well. Flaherty could be a fit on pretty much any of these contending teams. I think he'd be a really great fit, for one of those NL wildcard teams that's trying to make a push here. The Dodgers would also make a very nice fit as well. Torres' price may seem steep, but it makes sense due to his past performance and can break out at any time. True, he has a lot of Robinson Cano vibes for me, just the way he plays the position. John, have you heard anything on the Orioles? Well, speaking of the Orioles, we just mentioned Michael Lorenzen. I think he's probably the most likely candidate for the Orioles to be able to bring in. I just really like his ability to be a both starter and reliever for that team. He's not going to cost you too many of those top prospects to be able to bring him in. And so I think he's a very gettable piece for the Orioles. I still think they could make some other additions as well, but Michael Lorenzen, I would say, is probably the most likely to go to the Orioles if I had to pick one player. I still think the market for him, the Astros, if they can't get something done for Verlander, may turn to Michael Lorenzen, and then you'd have a real dogfight between the Orioles and Astros to see who gets him. But I think he's probably going to stay in the American League if I had to pick one of those teams. I'd still lean Orioles for Lorenzen. Kind of rounding out their top 10, they have Eduardo Rodriguez. We just mentioned him quite a bit. Dylan Carlson, another outfielder on this list for the Cardinals that they have available. Tyler O'Neill, probably the one name that you have recognized most on the trade market. I'll be curious what they decide to do with him. I think they should trade one of those outfielders, maybe even two. They have 5 guys right now that they could use in the outfield on the roster with another couple of prospects on the way. We shall see. Cobra, if the Padres lose today, I think they will sell. Really? Interesting. Cobra, I would just say the performance that they've done today, or this weekend against the Rangers, would at least give you some hope that your top couple in the rotation of Musgrove, of Darvish, of Snell would be able to get you in a playoff series and have really good starting pitching in all 3 games for that wild card round. I think you're close enough to be able to compete for a wild card spot. Do I think you will win it? No, but as much as that team has invested in this season, similar to the New York Mets, but the Padres, I think, are in a little bit better position. Their team has performed a little bit better on the periphery, but they just haven't gotten the result, the win, the loss, that would necessarily show for it. So if you think the Padres, if they sell, I would be more than happy to take Josh Hader off your hands as a Texas Ranger fan. So, hey, come on, Rangers. Just saying. Bradford, that was a pure paint pitch by Bradford to Soto. Fully in the block, or inside the square there. Would have been strike 3 to Juan Soto. Does not get the call. I don't know what it is about Rangers and these umpires. They can't get any calls in Houston, Chicago, San Diego. Nothing. Just ouch. This one even lower. Soto actually swings at and fouls it off. Welcome in, Arif. What about the Blue Jays' next trade? I don't think the Blue Jays are going to do too much more. I think Hicks might be the only addition. They could add one more small bullpen piece like Middleton from the White Sox. There's a number of middle relief options out there, but I think he would probably be one of the pieces I would have interested in if I'm the Jays. There's a theory the Yankees are trying to get extra prospects in a deal with Torres to use in Soto offer. I don't think Soto is going to be available at the deadline. After the season, they could have a conversation about Juan Soto being available, but you're looking at having Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, possibly going after Shohei Ohtani this offseason, and Juan Soto. Something doesn't mix there. Cobra, we just need a DH and some bullpen. Well, if you sell your Josh Hader, then you're not going to have a bullpen quite as good. I still think they still have a very good team. The sum of the parts so far just hasn't worked out, though. Pearson, Biggio, or Espinal. They could trade one of those pieces to be able to make some additions. We'll see what they decide to do. Carlson and Burleson. I think those are a couple of pieces for the Cardinals that could move after Tyler O'Neill. O'Neill would be the one guy I would have the most interest in from an outside team because I think Carlson's price is probably a little higher, having a little bit down of more of a down year. O'Neill's having a little bit better of a season, less control, but I think he might make more of an impact on this year's team than most of those other outfielders on the Cardinals roster. Burleson, I haven't really seen the market develop around him yet. Will always seem too good against the Rangers. Well, the Rangers haven't played well against the Padres since, 2019? 2018, something like that. The Rangers hadn't played well against Seattle as well, and they went to Seattle earlier this year and played very well. Giants are looking at Paul DeJong. They could use a shortstop there. They could use some production, period, there. Yankees don't have anyone to trade for Soto. They would have to wait for free agency. I don't think the Padres are trading Soto, period. So I don't think, that's, I think it's a kind of a moot point. I don't think anybody has, Machado fouls one off of his foot and sits down on home plate. That looked painful. I am heel. Who's your favorite team? Texas Rangers. I grew up with the Twins early on in my life. Cubs when I was really small, back when I say really small, like 8, 9 years old, back in the summer of love, back with Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire. They will make moves, though. Yes, they will. How about Pham or Lane Thomas to the Jays? Lane Thomas, he had a really great start to the year. Looks like he took a step forward in his production. Looks like they're going to bring out the trainer now for Machado. Looks like he can't really put too much weight on that foot. Padres might have a blow here if they can't keep Machado in the game. Bogart's coming out to look at him. Melvin coming out to look at him. Looks like he fouled it off right on the inside of his foot. Just missed the padding on there. But as far as Lane Thomas, I don't think Lane Thomas is going to be worth the price to get him. He's got some control left on his deal as well. Nationals are going to want a hefty price for him. I just don't think the value is really going to be there for a Lane Thomas type of trade. Astros and Rangers fan, cool. Joey Manassas to the Padres, possibly. Kind of fill that DH role for them. Watching the replay of that foul ball off the foot of Machado. Looks like he's going to stay in the game at least for now. Still kind of gritting his teeth, though. Padres can ill afford to lose Manny Machado right now, especially with their position in the standings. 1-2 pitch from Bradford to Machado. Line shot into right. Garcia comes up. Is it going to... Oh, nope, they're going to stop him. So it'll be bases loaded now. And it'll be up to Xander Bogaerts to come through here. You want the Rangers to get Barlow from the Royals? I don't think that has any chance of happening. Rangers have been steering away from pitchers who have walk and control issues so far, which makes me wonder if that's the reason why they didn't ultimately have the high bid for a guy like Jordan Hicks. I think they're looking for guys who walk very few people, strike out a lot of guys, and outside of that, they're really not looking for too much. They're just looking for control in the bullpen, and that's what the Rangers are hoping for. They had too many issues with walks last year. The sentiment coming into the season was keep people within the strike zone. If you're walking guys, you're going to be sent down. That's why we've seen them go through reliever after reliever after reliever after reliever after reliever. So we shall see. Matt Chapman going to be traded for pieces, really. I haven't seen that news. Brent Rooker makes sense for the Rangers. He does, but the cost would be really... I'm not sure if he's a big improvement over what they already have on the roster with guys like Robbie Grossman. Brent Rooker has had a nice start to the year, but he really struggled in May, June, July, and I'm just not sure if he's the perfect fit for the Rangers. I think if they're going to add some type of a bat, they're going to go big game hunting. They're not going to be looking at guys like Brent Rooker or Candelario. They're going to be looking for even bigger game than that. The Astros hope to get someone like Verlander or Singer even. Singer might make some sense just because the Royals have had a lot of regression on their team over the last year anyway. Injuries have really sapped their momentum as well. It's going to be a while before the Royals are ready to contend. Salvador Perez, if he decides he wants out, I think he will be traded. Singer, I think, would cost a hefty sum anyway. As far as how hefty, I'm not talking like top 20 prospect, but maybe a couple of nice pieces out there. We'll see what happens. Any word on Phillies rumors? Mike, welcome in. Phillies are looking for a corner bat. They're looking at guys like Adam Duvall, Tommy Pham, pieces like that. The Yankees have talked to the Nationals about Candelario. Makes some sense. Not sure it makes sense in the long term, but he could fill in at third base occasionally. Ay, Kim might have hurt his shoulder on the slide into home there. Kind of a sacrifice fly to get the first run of the game across for the Padres. Kim is down and in a lot of pain. Collarbone, shoulder injury area. Looks more like shoulder than collarbone. Wonder if he dislocated it. It looks really painful though for Kim. They got the translator out there for him to help discuss it with the trainer. I wonder if he dislocated it. That might be the last we see of Kim in this game. Kind of a real fire starter for the Padres this season. Good strong throw by Taveras. The throw and he kind of just landed on his shoulder on a kind of a roll into the ground. I thought he hit the... Yeah, he didn't even touch home plate at first. Although I'm sure Huff would have been called for blocking home plate because the throw took him into the baseline. But in either event, it looks like the ground caused the contact that hurt Kim. He was already grabbing for his shoulder before he even touched home. Ty France is available. Yankees have talked to Candelario. Yes. May need to increase prospect return to pay off salary, possibly. Any chance Hader gets traded to Toronto for Pearson and prospects? No chance. I think Hader's probably going to stay with the Padres through the deadline at this point. I think they're going to end up standing pat. If they do sell, I find it hard to believe teams like the Dodgers, teams like the Rangers, teams like the Tampa Rays would be outbid for his services. I don't think Toronto has the prospect capital to be able to get that type of thing done, or has the chutzpah to get that kind of a thing done. Mets are listening on Verlander, but industry expectations that he stays put. I'm not sure about that. I still think Verlander might ultimately want out of New York if they make some other big trades here at the deadline. As he sees more and more of these pieces of his team go away, it's going to be a rebuild situation, at least for this season, a teardown of this season. Billy Epler was very specific after the Scherzer trade to make sure it wouldn't that people didn't say rebuild and Mets in the same sentence. But I think they're going to spend big in the offseason. And so I don't necessarily think it's a full rebuild or anything like that. I do think they should gut the roster as much as they can and then just rebuild it through free agency like they tried to this year. And just use Cohen's checkbook as one of the most unique ways to build a team that any franchise has ever had in the history of baseball. They can do it differently than anybody ever has. Think of the way the Dodgers really got productive years and years ago, buying all of those contracts and taking all of that money from the Boston Red Sox to bring in Adrian Gonzalez, Carl Crawford, etc. That really kind of jump-started them into their window of contention. They didn't really have to give up major prospects to get major league talent. And that's what the Dodgers did, use their checkbook to be able to make those type of decisions. Now the Mets can do it the other direction by selling off some pieces, bringing in some top 100 prospects, and then adding a whole bunch of guys in free agency once again with the money they do ultimately save. They did still save $22.5 million off of the Scherzer deal that they can now commit towards Shohei Ohtani if they decide to, or whoever else, Urias, or whoever else might be available in the offseason. Hader to O's seems more plausible. I would agree with that if he wasn't on a rental type of contract. I think that the Orioles are looking for more control if they're going to outlay those or that level of prospect. Even as good as this team is this year, as it looks like they're going to be one of the they have a real chance to win a World Series this year, is how good they're playing right now. I just don't think they're going to part with those top-level prospects to bring in a rental option. As good as Hader is, I think if they're going to do that, they would do it for Bader rather than Hader. You think St. Louis and Toronto will make a big deal together? They already did. We need the Astros and Rangers in a 7-game series. That would be fantastic. Game 7, Scherzer versus Verlander would be box office money. Looks like Bradford might be done here. It's got the bases loaded, 2 outs here in the third. Leclerc is already loosening for the Rangers with Capusano up for the Padres. Rangers really would like to not get swept here in San Diego, at least give the Padres something to think about for the front office about Hader and Snell, but you're not going to do that if they sweep you here. Bradford falls behind 2-0 now. Looks like he's starting to overthrow. He's already at 72 pitches, though, through 2 2/3 innings. They're going to go ahead and have a visit here and just let him catch his breath. Pearson, Tiedemann, Barger involved in St. Louis for a couple deals to come. St. Louis would probably like Pearson. Maybe put him in the rotation at least for the rest of the year. See if he can kind of get that consistency that he never really found with Toronto. Verlander said waiving his clause depends on the front office vision. Well, apparently that vision for Scherzer did not work, so he wanted nothing to do with that. I wonder if the same could be said for Verlander when it's all said and done. I think if a Verlander trade happens, it happens today, so we'll see what happens. But I'm still holding out hope for a Verlander trade. I would just like to see it happen first and foremost, just to see what the return would possibly be. You think Ohtani will re-sign with the Angels if they make the playoffs? I don't think it'll be because they make the playoffs. I think it'll just be purely because he really likes playing in Anaheim anyway, and because of the pocketbook. I think the Angels are going to give him a really good offer. I think the Dodgers will give him a great offer, and I think ultimately he'll end up signing with the LA Dodgers because they're going to just throw down the Godfather offer and just say, hey, $60 million a year, 10 years, $600 million. And he's going to sign on the dotted line so fast your head will spin. So that's what I think will ultimately happen with Shohei Ohtani. It's going to be 3-2 now, 2 outs in the bottom of the third now to Capusano. This is the make-or-break moment for the Rangers right here in this game. Sanchez waits on deck. This is probably the last hitter for Bradford. Swing and a miss, a big strikeout there. Bradford needed that one. That's probably the end of his day. He threw a lot of pitches in 3 innings, a lot of high-pressure pitches in that inning as well. Blew one past Capusano there. Rangers needed that strikeout badly. But I'm curious to see what the Rangers do offensively and with that bullpen. But we shall see. Pearson for Tim Anderson and a prospect from the White Sox. I just don't think Anderson's value is high enough for the White Sox to really consider dealing him right now. I think he ultimately stays with the White Sox for one more year. As good as a piece Pearson might be for them to get into their rotation with all the departures they've had, I still think they're going to lose Clevenger here in a trade deadline deal. I just don't think that's the right package or right time to trade a guy like Tim Anderson, who's going to have a much better trade value next trade deadline season, or even in the off season as well. No Judge in lineup tonight. I think it will. I think will determine the Yankees' direction for deadline moves. Really, I still don't think the Yankees sell, but I guess you're referring. What I'm guessing what you're trying to say there, Michael, is that either they buy big, or that they kind of stand pat. By your comment there. If I'm the Yankees, I still add to the periphery of my team right now. I still think you probably got the third best odds to win that last wild card spot, but the Yankees have so much invested in their team. There's no reason why they shouldn't be trying to push forward. Brew Crew pitching awful in Atlanta this weekend. Is Justin Verlander a candidate for Milwaukee? Not a chance. The Milwaukee Brewers are not going to be adding a guy like Justin Verlander. I think they could add somebody of the likes of Michael Lorenzen, maybe somebody of that ilk, Clevenger, somebody who's not going to cost them a whole lot. It's going to cost a pretty penny as far as prospect capital as well. I do think there's a more likely chance that the Brewers would actually trade one of their top pieces in hopes, like Josh Hader last year, in hopes of retooling the roster a little bit while staying in contention. I think the series against the Braves really kind of crystallized things for the Brew Crew as far as where they stand. They've had a good year. Burns looks like an NL Cy Young candidate, at least right now. And I just don't think they really have enough firepower to really make any type of push this postseason. So I think that the best move for their long-term future is to do what they did with Josh Hader last year. But, anything happens with Milwaukee, everything's a complete surprise with whatever direction they decide to go. I just don't think that's the right move for the Padres to consider, for the Brewers to consider to go after Verlander. Maybe Hader to the Braves seems possible. If he's put on the market, I think Atlanta's going to be right in there. I think they need a closer type piece. Watching Dan O'Dowd on MLB Tonight last night, he was talking about their need for another back-end arm. He mentioned Paul Sewald could possibly be a guy. I think Sewald would probably be more available at this point than a guy like Hader, just because I think the Padres are ultimately going to stay in it and just hold pat right now. Any chance Varsho gets traded? Absolutely none. His value is way too high for them. They need to call up Austin Wells if he does not get traded. Possible. Yankees could use a nice little jump start there. Rangers broadcast now recognizing the trade. Jordan Montgomery and Chris Stratton for John King, Thomas Sagassi, and TK Roby. I think John King was actually there in San Diego, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sure Montgomery and Stratton will just meet them in Arlington on Monday. Snell up to 66 pitches through 3 1/3 so far. He's looked pretty good so far today. You can tell his command is a little bit all over the place, and that's because he does induce a lot of chase in his with his offerings anyway. A little bit erratic, but if you're a patient hitter, today might be your day. That's why Robbie Grossman drew in the lineup, and that's why he has a couple of walks. Boris is in San Diego too. Makes sense, because that's where Soto is. I think that might be part of the discussion for Preller around this time is, what ultimately would a extension look like for Soto, just to at least get the framework around it. You look at the pieces that could be available here at the deadline. It's in California. You got Texas, one of the biggest buyers here at the market, on the market anyway. Boris wants to be involved in those types of discussions. See if he can help with getting his players where they need to go. It's the job of an agent. And he's probably the best in the game, especially, over the last probably 10, 15 years in all of baseball. Probably the best agent for the player. And another walk here for Snell. As I said, he can be erratic at times. He does have a high walk rate. His run prevention, though, over the last 10 games has been elite. Sub-1 ERA over the last 10 starts for him. Now 11 so far today. Snell being a Boris client, okay. Makes sense for him to be there. This would be a big moment for Sam Huff for the Rangers, who's really struggled to get his feet planted in Major League Baseball. If he can plant a 2-run home run right here, he might solidify the need at the backup catcher spot for the Rangers. Former top prospect really needs to prove himself, though. He's never really been given consistent playing time. Tough pitcher to go up against, though, in order to, plant your feet and make a statement. But maybe today will be his day. If the Reds don't add a starter, they could call up Connor Phillips, possible. Swing and a miss there. But we're watching some afternoon baseball. Rangers losing 1-0, hoping to avoid a sweep against the Padres. If they do get swept, Padres, I think, are going to hold on to Snell and Hader. I think they're probably going to hold on to him anyway in the event that the Padres lose. But they would have a much tougher road to hoe than pretty much any other wild card contending team, as Huff strikes out. Seen a couple of trades today. Jordan Hicks goes from the Cardinals to the Blue Jays for a couple of prospects. Toronto sending their number 7 prospect. The Rangers acquiring another starting pitcher and a reliever. Jordan Montgomery and Chris Stratton go to the Rangers in exchange for reliever John King, prospect Thomas Sagassi, and a starting pitcher prospect in TK Roby, who I think should actually have a nice career there. Stolen base here for Duran. Came off the base for just a moment, but got back in time. Haven't seen him steal too many bases so far this year. More of a power hitter in the Rangers lineup. Before back of the Phillies lost, if you win. According to Mike Rizzo, there are 8 suitors for Candelario. Doesn't surprise me. But as far as what could the package actually be for him, I don't think it's going to be a whole heck of a lot. That's only Duran's 6th stolen base of the year, with Tavares up, Semien waiting on deck. And as I mentioned, Corey Seager is expected to be back in the next couple of days as well. Play the Dodgers next, not going to be easy. Well, if you win one against the Dodgers, then you could really be back in contention in that wild card picture. But if you lose tonight, you lose tomorrow, I still think you stand pat. I just don't think there's enough. I don't think there's enough justification to sell because of how much you've invested in the team. You're not in quite the same position that the Mets were, where the Mets had just played awful and the results match that. Meanwhile, the Padres, the results show that they're not a great team, but the outlying numbers show that they should win more games than what they've done so far. They are a good team. They have some good pieces, pretty much littered all over the place. Starting rotation had some good options. Bullpen has some good pieces. Their lineup is pretty solid as well. This one goes into right field. Duran is going to score here, and it's going to be a tie ball game. 1-1 on the throwing error from Snell allows the run to score. It'll go as an unearned run, as that would have been the 3rd out of the inning. Kind of a little dribbler halfway between the mound and home, and just an absolute misfire there by Blake Snell. Allows the Rangers to score their first run of the series. Double check and see if anything else has happened in the last few. There's the report on Candelario. Doesn't look like anything else has happened as of late. Let's go ahead and just double check our Twitter feed, see if anything else has happened. I wonder if Twitter's ultimately going to change names to X at some point because of the new ownership there, obviously. He likes to have all his companies have something to do with X. Another stolen base here on Snell. Almost another overslide here on Tavares. Ground game working against Gary Sanchez and Blake Snell. Sanchez has never been a good receiver behind the plate. Looks like I couldn't see the name on that one. But Semien is up right now. Appreciate you guys joining us for some Sunday afternoon baseball. Semien's been very good with runners in scoring position this year, hitting .326 with 47 RBIs out of the leadoff spot. That's almost unheard of. Just double check and see if there's anything else. Oh! Hard hit ball. This one's going to be a 2-run homer if it's fair, and it's foul by about 2 or 3 feet. Would have been a 2-run home run, the first lead the Rangers would have had all series. Didn't miss by much. Looking at the replay, maybe about 4 feet foul. Appreciate you guys joining us for a fun afternoon of baseball. Oh, maybe we got a new tweet here. Nope. Refresh our rumor page. Probably going to call it here in about the next 10-15 minutes, but hopefully we get some more trade activity. Market probably trying to readjust after the trade of Hicks and Montgomery, but I think we're going to get a flurry of activity around Sunday Night Baseball start time, so make sure you check out that. We'll be live for you guys again at about 8:30 this evening, breaking down all the latest from the trade deadline. But we should see a healthy amount of activity both tonight, tomorrow, and then, of course, trade deadline day. You're going to see all kinds of relief pitchers get traded, all kinds of depth outfielders get moved. So make sure you join us all day long. You're going to see some significant trades happen probably today, maybe one or two on Tuesday. So keep your eyes peeled. If the Padres do decide to sell, Hader would immediately become the best bullpen option available on the market. Bednar, probably the best one as far as total length of deal and overall value of the player in regards to his contract. But Hader, the better performer this season. And we'll see what team ultimately decides to pay the piper for either of those two guys. In fact, let's have a little bit of fun, shall we? Let's say, just for kicks and giggles, let's go ahead and refresh our page here. Get this cleaned up. We'll do a two-team trade. Let's go ahead and do a San Diego Padres trade. Let's say, for some reason, Cobra, you're right, and that they decide, we're far enough out. There's so many teams between us and the top of the wild card standings. We don't really have a lot of success so far this year. Let's go ahead and cash in the chips that we can, without necessarily giving or punting on the whole season. So, or next year either. So, let's say that they go to Atlanta and say, hey, we'll go ahead and give you Josh Hader. Let me get that fixed up for us. There we go. Hader has some good value, but it's not exactly through the roof or anything like that. Braves absolutely need a reliever, in my opinion. I think that would really crystallize what this team is overall. They got a decent starting rotation, some really good options there. They really don't need any depth there either. They can pretty much call anybody up at this point, and it seems like they have endless success at this point. And then as far as what could they give up for a guy like Hader, we did a trade the other day with Richie being the first piece going back. I think that would be a great get for them. Gives them a number one or a first round pick anyway, and then they got another first round pick who's struggled so far in the majors in Shoemaker, and that would be the deal I would make if I am the San Diego Padres. I would get Richie, a really good starting pitching prospect. Snell probably isn't going to be able to re-sign with San Diego unless they really are willing to break the bank, which they've done time after time after time for Machado, for Bogarts. Now they're going to have to do it for Soto. They did it for Musgrove. They did it for Darvish. Do they really have another $20+ million to spare for Snell? I don't think so. So, maybe trading Snell right now might be the best option. Looks like Gary Sanchez makes up for the throwing mistake in the last inning and gets the solo home run here off of Jose Leclerc, who had been better for the Rangers, but gives up the long ball here, and the Padres are right back in front, 2-1, San Diego. Pardon me. Flaherty where does he go? If I had to guess Flaherty right now, I would say, that's tough. He pretty much or even odds on pretty much all of these places, so it's literally just pick them. I would say the Dodgers, Diamondbacks, Reds, and Marlins all equal chances at getting him. If I had to pick one right now, I'll go Dodgers just because they seem to make the move, for that type of pitcher quite a bit. I think he's their type of pitcher. The analytics around him might work or might look a little bit more favorably if they get him into that market and see if they can fix a couple of things for him, make him a little bit more consistent. Don't need another shortstop, LOL. We have Merrill at AA. Well, Shoemaker is 25 years old. The piece you're getting here is Richie, and you're getting Shoemaker as kind of a depth piece for you. He's going to probably fill a kind of a multi-utility role at some point in the majors anyway. He hasn't really latched on anywhere on the diamond with a big club for the Braves, but think of him as kind of the Jurickson Profar type of player for the Padres down the stretch here. Looks like a hit batter here for Leclerc. He's been wild now. Hits the number 9 man, Trent Grisham. And things do not look good right now for Jose Leclerc. They might go to the bullpen again quickly here in Texas. Flaherty will be a Dodger. I think that's probably where he goes. Fries, welcome to the stream here. Thank you for joining us. I think the Rangers are probably going to lose this one. I mean, they started Bradford here. They're already into the bullpen here in the 4th inning. But that's why you got a couple of starting pitchers to kind of hopefully reset yourselves. Mike Maddox coming out of the dugout to kind of give their bullpen some time to get their arms loose. Logan Gilbert to St. Louis. Sarah, I think that's your number one target here at the deadline, but it's going to cost you a pretty penny. You're talking a couple of top prospects, possibly going out from the St. Louis Cardinals. I just don't think that that's the right move for them. They need to add some starting pitching. I do agree there. I just don't think it's going to be on the level of a Logan Gilbert. I think you're going to be looking at guys who are major league ready, or some guys who are further away as far as starting pitching talent, like they got in the Jordan Montgomery deal. I think the best case scenario would be like if you traded away guys like Tyler O'Neill, Contreras, a couple other bullpen arms. Maybe you could get a guy like Owen White level prospect. Would probably be best case scenario here at the deadline for St. Louis. But I don't see Logan Gilbert being the guy that the Cardinals ultimately get. I think a trade for Logan Gilbert probably is more likely for a team like Cincinnati, who has some middle infield prospects that they could trade back to St. Louis that they just gave away in the Luis Castillo trade. So if I'm thinking, like the Seattle Mariners, I would go to the Cincinnati Reds and say, hey, I'll take Jonathan India and 2 other prospects for Logan Gilbert. Being honest with you, only a Rangers fan who does this type of coverage, so I subbed right away. I try to keep myself honest. I don't try to hide the fact that I'm a Rangers fan. I don't want to, try to tell you guys, from these other fan bases, like, Sarah, I know you're a Cardinals fan. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong for being a Cardinals fan. Be a Rangers fan. That's not my role. My role is to tell you what's going on around Major League Baseball and have some fun with you guys talking about sports. We talk a lot about baseball. We talk a little bit about the NFL, the NBA, and the NHL. But we do cover baseball primarily, and I do definitely cover the Rangers probably more than the other teams just because I hear it all the time. I'm around it. I'm in Texas. So I get all of those day-by-day rumors. I get all the little rumblings around the team. And that's why the Nathan Eovaldi thing I don't think is anything of real concern. The thing that worries me is that they only set it to the 27th as far as the retroactive date, when they should have done it further back if they really wanted him back sooner. But it sounds like they really want to be cautious with him, even more so than they already were being. So that's the worry I have. Like I said, I try not to hide my fandom from you guys. So feel free to cheer for whoever you guys want as well. Cardinals fan as well, cool. Welcome back, Clay. Cardinals selling at the deadline for the first time in like 3 decades? Yeah, it's very, very rare. It's not often it happens. I think they'll be right back into contention next year. I thought the best way for them to be able to reset their franchise, though, if they wanted to get some serious starting pitching prospects, was to trade a guy like Nolan Arenado, because they could move Gorman over to his natural position. Really allows their minor league talent that's been really good position players, allows them to play their natural position at the big league club and really take off from there. They would lose something from a leadership perspective, don't get me wrong, and Arenado is still one of the best third basemen in all of baseball. But I think the long-term future of the Cardinals probably would have been better served by trading him. I guess they're going to hold on to him for at least till the offseason when more teams can be involved. I still don't even think they trade him at that point. But I think the long-term outlook for the Cardinals probably would have been a little bit better than keeping Nolan Arenado. I think a Dodgers package would have at least gotten you 2 really good starting pitching prospects you could immediately put into your rotation next year. And they're not going to do it. Doesn't sound like they're going to get that type of a deal done. There's a couple of days left before the deadline. Things can change. Mozeliak can change his mind. The Dodgers could overwhelm him with an offer. But Arenado probably one of the top 2 or 3 third basemen in all of baseball as we speak right now. Welcome in, James. Appreciate you for joining us. In case those of you who are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're going to be live for you guys all day long on deadline day, so make sure you join us then as well. I really appreciate the support that you guys have given us by hitting those like buttons. Got a couple of super chats today. It really does help us out. Looks like a double play. Nope, not a double play ball. Just a force out at second base. Tatis Jr. got down the line really well. And 2 outs now in the 4th. Sanchez has looked great in a Padres uniform. Really solved their issues behind the plate. Lane Thomas or Duvall to the Phillies. Your thoughts? Duvall, Lane Thomas I wouldn't want. He's really regressed over the last couple of months. So if I had to get one or the other, I would go Adam Duvall, even though he's also regressed. But I can count on him a little bit more than I think I can Lane Thomas. I just looked up. The Cardinals have 1 sub-80 win team this millennium. It was the 78 wins. Yeah, it doesn't happen often. The Cardinals play really good defense. At least that's the MO. They pitch really well, and they have timely hitting. That's been their formula to success for the better part of, forever. This new look front office, the way they're tinkering with the lineup more and more, the way they're more involved with the decisions that are happening on the field by hiring Marmol, firing their former manager. I think all of those things were done in error, and I hope Mozeliak learns from the mistake here. Is that you tinkered with something that was so successful for so long and didn't show any signs that it was going wrong or anything like that. You decided to try to make it better. I get it, but the decision obviously hasn't worked, and so now's the time for Cardinals front office to really realize their mistake and fix it. I think Marmol's probably out at the end of this year anyway, so their pitching staff really has been inconsistent. I wonder if that has to do with the change at the pitching coach spot. Mike Maddox going to Texas, a younger guy stepping in. It just doesn't look like the Cardinals of old, and I think that's why the Cardinals need to readjust how they're going to build their team, how they're going to build their management style going forward. I would argue Young has been better than Arenado this year, which I thought I would never say. I would agree with you. Young has been better, although he's certainly starting to hit some rookie slump, if you will. First couple months of the year, he looked like the American League Rookie of the Year. He probably will still ultimately win it, but I'm expecting some regression for Josh Young in the second half. I think he needs to probably get a day or two off and kind of get back into the cage. Collectively take a breather and just kind of, look at himself in the mirror a little bit and say, hey, you're successful in the big leaguers. Now it's time to move forward and do it every single day. I think Young could use a little bit of time off, which is why a bat coming into the team right now would really help out this organization if you're a Rangers fan, because then you could put Duran or Smith at third base for a day or two and allow Young to get his head right and, really refreshed for the second half of the year. Remember, he was at the All-Star game, so he's not exactly he didn't exactly get that full-time off like everybody else did. So you remember how Jonah Heim was at the end of last year, kind of worn down and everything? Jonah Heim this year looked really good until the injury yesterday, or on Wednesday anyway, on a swing that looks like it might actually cost him the rest of the season. But he looked a whole lot stronger, a whole lot more durable than he had last year. Really looked like he had a whole lot more energy. And I think Josh Young is in a very similar spot to the way Jonah Heim was last year. Juan Soto gets a double here, scoring Tatis Jr. Brock Burke gives up a one-pitch double. Oopsies. Rangers are now down 3-1. Wait, did Jordan Hicks and Jordan Montgomery leave the Cards? Yes, they did. Separate trades. Jordan Hicks goes to the Toronto Blue Jays, while Jordan Montgomery goes to the Texas Rangers along with Chris Stratton. Number 7 prospect from the Blue Jays goes to the Cardinals along with another one, while the Texas Rangers give them the number 11 and 14 prospects and a reliever in John King. As a Cardinals fan, I would love to see us trade Gorman for Brian Wu, Hancock, Ford, and Clase. That is what I would do. I don't know. Gorman looks like he's got 30 home run potential already. If I'm the Cardinals, I would try to go with the younger guy and just try to build from there. I think this team needs to get a little bit younger on that pitching staff, a little bit more productive, which is why a trade for Nolan Arenado would really reset that pitching staff, I believe, if they made a trade with the LA Dodgers. So do I think it's going to happen? No, but there's a couple of days left until the deadline. We'll see if something happens there. Got 45 of you guys with us right now. Wow. Thank you guys for joining us. Hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll be live for you guys all day on Tuesday on deadline day. So make sure you join us. Send us a super chat if you want. Have a question. If you want to support the stream, you're more than welcome to. Really does help us out. I know, Connor, you sent us a couple earlier today. Really wanted to thank you for that. Really does help us out. I think you're the first one to really send us one. Or second person, I think, actually, to send us one since we started doing the super chat. So thank you for that. Brock Burke is on for the Rangers right now, who's been good for them. He's one of the arms I forgot to mention about the playoff bullpen for the Rangers, what it might look like. But right now they got to figure out how they're going to beat the Padres today to really convince them to at least think about standing pat at the deadline or even selling here at the deadline. Huff having a tough time blocking balls in the dirt from Brock Burke right now. Those are 3 starting pitchers, and Wu. Well, I'm just not sure that the Cardinals would rather trade Gorman than they would Arenado. I think both players are equally unavailable, but if I were to trade one of the two, I'd rather trade Arenado. I'd rather go with the youth. A little bit of an airmailed throw there from left field from Grossman. Machado getting a base hit to left. Burke has not looked crisp here today. As a Phillies fan, would you recommend us getting Paul Goldschmidt or taking a starting pitcher route if we could? If you had to choose one or the other, I would go starting pitcher. Always starting pitcher over hitter, especially when you consider Philadelphia really hasn't gotten much out of Trey Turner. He will eventually figure it out. That he's hitting, in the 7th hole right now? But no, Goldie is not available, Cobra. But I think if you overwhelm any team for any player, I think any trade could happen. I just don't think Goldschmidt is, all that available here at the deadline. What a play by Adolis Garcia. Sliding catch in the outfield to end the inning. Nice play by Adolis Garcia. Whew. Beautiful. Talk about Donovan going to Seattle as well. Well, if you're going to go for, the Donovan route, you could see something like a Gilbert trade at that point, if you're including Donovan and maybe a couple other pieces. But again, I would rather trade Arenado and get my starting pitching that way and stay with my young team that I already have that looks pretty darn good from a position player side. Trading DeYoung, trading Arenado makes sense. Clay Goldschmidt back to Arizona would be interesting. I agree. Get him some veteran leadership in that clubhouse for a stretch run here. He's got, 2.5 years on his deal left right now. I just don't think he's all that available. If he is, he would probably be the best offensive player available here at the deadline, in which case I don't think it's all that likely Arizona would offer up the best package for him. I think these teams that are all in probably would outbid all these other teams for, the top of the market hitter right now, because the market for hitting right now is very, very thin. You're talking about guys like Tyler O'Neill, Candelario, Thomas, Duvall, pieces like that at the top of the market, and that ain't exactly getting it done. Tasker Hernandez comes to mind from the Seattle Mariners. Pete Alonso, if he's put on the market, instantly becomes the best option available. That's why I thought a trade for Ohtani would make a ton of sense for the Angels, even after not trading him for the past 2.5 years. I still think it's organizational malpractice for what the Angels did, but as things stand right now, he would have commanded so much on the trade market just because there's a lack of hitting. Oh, by the way, he's an ace for your rotation as well. Just saying. I don't know. I want to see the league going toward less power and more contact soon. Well, we've already started to see that. We're seeing a lot more contact in baseball this year, a lot more on-base type of things. So I think you're getting what you want. Attendance is through the roof right now for Major League Baseball. The changes they made this year are certainly working. A sport that had notoriously been rigid about the rules, not wanting to change things, change their playoff format, change the way the game is paced, change rules as far as how many times you can throw over to first, change how many times you can step out of the box, put a clock on everything. Those are things that have all made baseball so much more presentable to the everyday fan, which is why I have so many of you guys in my stream right now. How many of you guys were even watching baseball a year ago? I know more than half of you guys are diehard baseball fans, I get it. But baseball has really gained popularity in the past year because of the changes they made this year and are going to continue to make in the next year or two. I still think robo-umps are coming. It sounded like they were going to be happening next year. Sounds like Rob Manfred is going to step on the brakes a little bit this year and possibly push it to 2025. But it will be a thing at one point in Major League Baseball. The sooner they embrace it, as soon as that technology is ready, which I think it's darn close, the better for Major League Baseball. So we could see them tinker a little bit with how the timing works, a second here or two there. But overall, the changes Major League Baseball has made looks so much better. And we'll see what they do. Snell back out for his 5th inning of work anyway. At 85 pitches here in the 5th, probably his last inning in what could be his final inning as a member of the San Diego Padres if they do decide to sell. 1-2 pitch here to Grossman, takes low. 2-2. Extra inning thing needs to go. I don't like it. I think it could be a little bit better as well. I get the point, the reasoning behind it, but at that point, just go ahead and keep playing the game. I know you don't want 18-inning games anymore, but you're still seeing the occasional 12-inning game, the occasional 13, 14-inning game. And I would just rather see both teams play it out like normal. I mean, how many times did we, wake up as we were, 15 years ago and watch, nice broken bat, hard hit smash to short, gets through the shortstop there. And Grossman is on for the third time today. I think the broken bat kind of startled Bogaerts more than anything else on that one. But lead man is on for the Rangers here in the fifth. Actually, no, it was a short hop that got him. Literally a very tough short hop. But the extra inning thing, I think is going to get a little bit better at some point. They will ultimately alter what they decide to do there. Yeah, he has done a lot of great things, Fries. I agree. Rob Manfred's done a lot of great changes. That's why he got the big-time extension. And that's why I think Major League Baseball is actually going to get some expansion teams within his next tenure as commissioner of Major League Baseball. A lot of teams out there, Nashville, that could be cities that could get a team. Nashville comes first to mind. Don Mattingly, already a part of that group that's trying to get a team there. It sounds like he could be their manager already. He's kind of their manager in waiting right now in Toronto as their associate, or bench boss anyway, behind John Snyder. But sounds like Nashville probably gets the first look as far as teams that might get an expansion team, or cities that might get an expansion team. Quebec comes to mind. Montreal comes to mind. Vegas obviously is getting the A's at some point. I wonder if Major League Baseball's ownership groups decide to ultimately nix the deal. But as of right now, sounds like it's going to happen that Vegas will get the A's. If they don't, then I think they could be an expansion team. Rays should just move to Orlando. I think that actually would be a decent move for them. They don't really draw in Tampa Bay, even when they have such a great roster right now, a great team, and might be a good move for them to alter mess some things up there a little bit, mix some things up there a little bit. I already know why Moreno didn't want to trade Ohtani. It's because he didn't want to be remembered for being that guy that traded away modern-day Ruth and causing the Ohtani curse. Sure, but would have been the right baseball decision. Really appreciate you guys joining us. Got 30 strong for the last hour anyway. If you guys are new here to the Upside, make sure you say hello. Hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at UpsideSM. Going to update this site here just to see if anything else is breaking here. Doesn't look like it as of right now. Afternoon baseball, a lot of teams might wait until their rosters are all done through the day and just leaving Sunday night baseball. This evening you could see some healthy trade movement, so that's again why we'll be live at about 8:30. So make sure you join us then. Duvall just homered, so again, another deadline piece making a big impression there. 3-2 count once again. Blake Snell is really kind of all over the place today with his command, but still has yet to give up an earned run. 3-2 count now to Nathaniel Lowe. Padres leading 3-1. If Padres lose this one, I think they ultimately stand pat at the deadline rather than buy or sell. But an argument could be made that they may sell those pieces anyway to maximize their value. Heard Salt Lake is an expansion choice as well. I agree. Salt Lake is up there. They draw really well for an NBA city as well. Even when their team is not great, they still draw, so that's good. Major League Baseball likes to look at those other types of sports and see if they have an appetite for those things. And I would picture Salt Lake as kind of a similar place to play like Colorado as far as how the weather is going to be impacting the play on the field. And I wonder if Salt Lake would be another destination like Colorado that could really mess with things from a weather elevation type of perspective. Look at what Levi Weaver put on here. Apparently, MLB Game Day on his phone was just... this is what the guy was doing on his phone. He was like, is Kim okay out there at second base? Makes sense. That's funny. Whatever happened to Rays splitting time in Montreal and Tampa Bay, that was never really going to be a thing. They were going to be in Tampa Bay pretty much exclusively. Looks like the Padres are loosening up Nick Martinez in their bullpen. Saying Wynn is getting called up. Yeah, the mountain backdrop in Salt Lake would be phenomenal. I agree there. See if anything else is happening here. Really thirsty for all this trade deadline news. That's what I want. I don't want, injuries and call-ups are nice. I want to see some trades. That's why it's called the trade deadline. Ready for some activity. All right. Now 2 outs now in the top of the 5th anyway. Sorry about that. Had just a moment there. Alrighty. Let's do some fun things here. While we're waiting for some trades to actually start happening here, let's go over to our trade simulator and just clear this off once again, and let's have some fun. Snell gets through 5 as Josh Young is out. And let's start with a trade here. Let's go with one of these selling teams. Let's go with let's do the Tigers. We haven't done one with the Tigers in a while, so let's go ahead and do one with the Tigers here. The 1st is the last day of the trade deadline, so is the actual trade deadline. We'll be live for you guys on Tuesday. Put your trade in, the Gorman one. We can do that here in just a moment. I want to do one here for the Tigers. Let's go ahead and do Baltimore. We haven't really done one for the Orioles either. And let's look at what the Orioles could possibly get here. They're looking at some starting pitching. Remember, they're looking at the Tigers possibly trading guys like Rodriguez, like Lorenzen. Those are kind of the 2 guys that are available. Rodriguez has only got the rest of this year anyway left on his deal. Or I thought he had more years left. Let me flip this around. That might not be the right Rodriguez. Give me just a second. Okay. So it is the right one. Okay. And then here's Lorenzen right. Well, where is Lorenzen? There he is. He was hiding. Okay, so there's the 2 guys that are available from the Detroit Tigers. Neither one of them is going to be great value, either one of them, but I think Lorenzen is a little bit less of a cost than Eduardo Rodriguez. Rodriguez, I think, could still get you a top 15, borderline top 10 prospect from a team. Lorenzen, I think, is probably going to get you a smaller package, but you might get you more value. Like the trade for Montgomery, where they got 3 pieces. I think that's something the Orioles could do for a guy like Lorenzen there. But as we mentioned, that the Houston Astros are looking at him as well. What could the O's give up? Well, they're not going to give up their top prospects. I think they really want to hold on to those upper-level guys like... Let me get this pulled up here. They're not going to trade the former number 1 pick in Holiday. They're not going to trade guys like Cowser, Mayo, Hurstad. They're not going to trade those guys. You're going to be looking much lower down on the food chain here. You're looking at guys like maybe a DL Hall might make some sense. It's kind of the high-end piece if they decided to go after both starting pitchers, and maybe a couple other pieces on the back end of that. Even that might be a little bit of an overpay, at least for Lorenzen. Could you see Lang going? I don't think so. I think the Tigers want to hold on to him. Brock Burke just does not look good here today in San Diego. Gives up a leadoff single here to Cronenworth in the 5th. Rangers going a little bit of a bullpen day in San Diego. You look at all this value of this young Orioles team. You got Rutschman, Henderson, Holiday, probably the 3 cornerstones of your franchise. Then you get into guys like Rodriguez, Bradish, Mayo, Bautista, all have long-term control left on all of those guys. Cowser as well. Mullins is probably the oldest of this group and could be one of the guys that's actually available. Double play, nicely turned by Ezekiel Duran, somehow avoided being taken out by the slide into second of Cronenworth, kind of off, or the throw by Burke into second base just did not really look comfortable, looked kind of to handcuff Duran a little bit. But overall, they get the double play done. Let's check in on the Twitter here just to see if anything else has happened. Doesn't look like it. Check in on MLB trade rumors. Nothing there. What was your trade again, Fries? Your Gorman trade? Trying to remember who that was with. Put your pieces again in the trade or in the chat anyway, and we'll go ahead and plug it in here and see what it looks like. We'll go ahead and clear it off. Cardinals will be the first team, obviously, because they're going to be trading Gorman. Hard hit ball by Sanchez again, and another home run by Gary Sanchez. Gary Sanchez is absolutely carrying the Padres offense right now, at least today. Was it the Mariners that you were trading him to? I think it was the Mariners. All right, so Gorman has a 39 value here. So the Mariners are going to have to give up a pretty penny, but you are not going to be able to get a guy like Logan Gilbert. So looking at the other side of it, you could get a guy like Wu. That'd probably be your top piece back, of course. You're saying Hancock, Ford. I think already you're pushing up against the value of Gorman. Ford and Clase. Ford, there's Ford. I'm missing one. Hancock. Clase is right there. And Hancock. So there's your trade right there. 39 to 52. Not a huge overpay. Could it happen? Sure. I just don't think St. Louis would do that type of a move. It is very tempting. It does get you a starter there that you could, really wish on. I don't know. It's an interesting trade, but if I were to do something like that, if I'm the Cardinals, why not just trade Nolan Arenado? Frees up money so I can sign the people that I want to back to my team or go into the free agent market. It gets my team younger because I now move Gorman over and allow some of my minor league depth to step up. I have a shortstop ready to go, and I could get some middle infield prospects for some of the guys I'm giving away here at the deadline. Nice strikeout there by Burke, kind of bouncing back from that home run. Grisham strikes out and has a word for the home plate umpire. 4-1 now. The starting pitcher, Ford, not the catcher. Let me see here. This one, the 19-year-old. Actually like that a little bit better. I still don't think that's enough for the Cardinals to do it, though. If I'm a Cardinals fan, I would not do this trade. If I'm the front office, I should say I would not do this trade. You get a bunch of starting pitching back, I get that. The starting pitching is what you need. Very good. But for me, you're trading from a position that you're trading away youth, which is the one thing the Cardinals organization really has worked well with over the last 20 years, building within their own, not bringing in outside free agents. And Arenado is one of those trade guys that they have brought in. They did bring in Holiday at one point in a trade as well. I just think they'd be better served by making the decision to trade Arenado and get prospects back that way. You'd get more back for him anyway, and you free up money that you can use in the long term. Let's kind of flip this around a little bit. Let's see if they did just flip the pieces in here. Let's say Arenado is the piece that they put in. Okay? You're looking at his value at 7.5. I would say the Cardinals would be happy to eat, we'll call it 30 million, roughly 10, not even 10 million per year. Something like that. Did I not hit add? No. There we go. Now you add that in there, you take Gorman back out. This trade I would much rather do, but this type of a trade you'd get better prospects, I think, that are ready for the majors from a team like the Dodgers. I like the addition of Wu here, don't get me wrong. But I still would rather have Gorman's future than Arenado if I'm a Cardinals front office person, because I save money with Arenado, even though I'd be giving a little bit of money here to the Mariners or to whoever I trade Arenado to. I just think the better way to go would be to trade the older player in almost every circumstance. And that's not exclusive to the Cardinals. I just think the Cardinals are in a unique position where they have, 3 different players who could easily play third base. Arenado being the oldest of them. Wynn, Donovan, and Edman still. I'm not saying he wouldn't still be a young team. I'm just saying that I would still rather have Gorman and get the young pieces in addition to having Gorman as well. Back-to-back singles here to open things up for the Rangers in the 6th. Finally getting something going here in San Diego. They've really struggled offensively. Maybe this is where the Rangers break out. Kind of a jam shot up the middle. Back-to-back singles into center. Man, it's a beautiful day out there in San Diego, by the way. When is it not? I guess is the better question. That's why they have the winter meetings there, 3 times every 10 years. A one-hop smash, and are they going to get anybody? Yes, they do. They get Huff at first. Nice play by the first baseman, Cronenworth. It's now going to be second and third with 1 out. And I think it's going to be Leody Taveras next, with a couple of runners in scoring position, something the Rangers were the best in baseball at, possibly the best in all of baseball history for the first couple months of the season. But certainly haven't been the same team over the last 45 days at least offensively. We'll see if they can solve that type of a problem. Let's go ahead and flip this to the Dodgers. Arenado here to the Dodgers, along with, say, $30 million, because they're trying to save money to stay underneath the tax for Shohei. Then you get guys at the top of the rotation type pieces from the Dodgers. You get Sheehan, very similar to Wu as far as prospect value. You could get a guy like Grove. You could get a guy here like Stone, I thought was in this range. They could go for a second base prospect in Bush. If you included Flaherty in this type of a deal, that would probably push the total package of the deal north of 50. In fact, we'll do that here in just a second, just to show you guys what the package could ultimately look like. So we'll start with that. We'll go with where's Stone? There's Stone right there. Put him in this package. As Taveras strikes out, it'll be up to Marcus Semien, who almost hit a 2-run homer earlier in the game. Yeah, that is true. They really do need to get Corey Seager back. Royals made a trade. Middle infield player here. Another base hit up the middle. This might score 2. It does. 4-3 ball game now. Texas back in it. Marcus Semien gets a base hit up the middle. 3 hits right back through the box this inning for Texas. 2 outs now, though. Marcus Semien coming through with a 2-out, 2-run single there to get the Rangers back within reach there. I like the trade for Atlanta. Gets them a middle infielder that can literally play literally everywhere. The piece they gave up in return is Taylor Hearn. They just acquired him from the Texas Rangers. Didn't look like he had a long-term fit on a major league roster unless he was going to give or get some significant time. Interesting note here is that the Rangers also traded Cole Ragans to the Kansas City Royals in that deal for Aroldis Chapman. So a couple of the pieces that weren't working out so great for the Rangers now in that Kansas City bullpen. Think back to the Atlanta trade a couple of years ago that sent Drew Waters there, prospect that was really taking the minor leagues by storm anyway through Double-A, and then really couldn't do anything at the Triple-A level. Kind of stalled out in the Brave system, so they ended up having to move him, and the Royals decided to take a flyer on him. He's now their right fielder. We talked about the Royals having a lot of guys regress. Well, we're seeing a lot of regression from them. Now maybe they can get some of these guys who've already had poor seasons at other places and might get a nice bounce back. Dang. Kind of surprised the return is only Taylor Hearn, though. Not some lower level, prospect as well. I guess you never were going to get a whole lot, but I was hoping if you're a Royals guy to get like a 17, 18-year-old youngster who signed for $10K in the international free agency period, but not the case. Man, Robbie Grossman's been on base 3 times today, and it looks like he's about to be on there for a 4th time, his 3rd walk of the day, if it happens. He's having a good day, trying to make his case to stay on this roster after the trade deadline. Swing and a miss on the off speed. Still no Giants. Yeah, I don't think the Giants are going to do too much here at the deadline. I think they're hoping to get a big game hunting for Verlander. I just don't think that's going to happen either. Royals trying to become the 2018 Rangers or something like that. I don't know about that one, but Rangers I think still had better prospects at that point than the Royals do now. The regression that they've really had has really hurt the future, the long-term future of the Royals in general. DeYoung, I agree, makes sense that he could go to the Giants. Might be one of the smaller acquisitions that they could make that won't cost them a whole lot of prospects. 3-2, 2 outs, top of the 6th. Oh, that's a strike right at the knees. Grossman took it looking. But the Rangers score 2. That's now 4-3 ball game as they go to the bottom of the 6th. The Rangers holding tough on a day when they go up against one of the best pitchers in all of baseball the last couple of months in Blake Snell. They chase him after 5. And a day they're going with kind of a bullpen day with Bradford being their starter. Gets through 3. Really high pitch count for 3 innings, though. They were hoping to get 5, 6, 7 out of him and couldn't quite get there. Just overworked in those 3 innings. They go to Leclerc. They go to Burke. Gary Sanchez has had a couple of home runs for the Padres, and that's the difference in the game right now. Let's kind of update our standings here for any other games that may have gone final, just so you guys can kind of see where this NL leaderboard is. Look where those Padres sit right now, 5.5 out. Meanwhile, the Mets are 6.5 out. Both teams are below 500. Even with the 2-game win streak for the Padres, they're still 3 down from being 500. The run differential, though, best among all the wild card teams. Cubs are really close there, though. Cubs are playing a little bit better baseball, 8-2 in their last 10. They're finally above 500. Looks like the Reds are going to win today. Crossing the 2-hour threshold. Appreciate you guys for joining us. If you haven't hit that like button already, please do so. It really does help us out. You guys have no idea how much it does, so we really do appreciate it. Had a couple of super chats earlier. If you guys feel free to want to support the channel, we'd appreciate that as well. And Hopefully, we'll be able to get to do the rest or a few more games after the trade deadline as well. Just as a programming reminder, we will be live for you guys all day on Tuesday, starting at 8 a.m. all the way through the deadline till probably about 6:30. Probably do a recap show thereafter as well around 8:30, just kind of wrap everything up from the trade deadline, roster moves, all those kinds of things, DFA'd people. You're going to see a lot of waivers right after the deadline as well as rosters try to make room for their recent additions, those types of things. And should be a very active day on Tuesday. Warren, Phillies are in a losing streak. They need help badly, really need it bad. I would agree. Phillies, I still think, are probably one of the better teams in that wild card picture. They're 4-6 in their last 10. I mean, they're only a half game out of a wild card spot right now. I'm not too worried about them. I think Trey Turner will turn it on, and when he does, that team is just going to take off like a rocket. And we'll see when he does, though, is the question. You'd really hope it'd rather be sooner than later, but Trey Turner's too good of a player to play this poorly for this long. Brock Burke out there for a third straight inning. Trying to get some length out of him today. He's only at 24 pitches, though. Through an inning and 2/3. Finished up the 4th, got through the 5th. Now got the first out here in the 6th. The Rangers can tie it. They can turn it over to their A bullpen, which I guess is the first steps of that A bullpen with Leclerc and Burke in that middle relief role. You'd imagine Spores probably comes on next, or Chapman if they eventually tie it. And then Will Smith has shown the ability to pitch, a little bit more than an inning if necessary. Probably would close it out if they can get this game tied or into the lead. First part, though, you got to be able to pitch to get there. Welcome back, Jose. Still waiting on Dave Dombrowski to get something done. Read what you just wrote there, my friend. Dave Dombrowski. How often does he not act at the deadline when he has a team he thinks has a chance to win a series? None. He always makes some type of a move. I think they will add smaller pieces here at the deadline. Think bullpen, think corner outfield, think DH type players. That's ultimately what will go to the Phillies. What a play again by Adolis Garcia, banging into the wall. Going to need a minute to catch his breath on that one. But what a play. Looks like he's okay, just kind of taking a minute. Wonder if the wind got knocked out of him just a hair. He's not wheezing or gasping for air, but he leaped and then kind of banged into there. Looked like maybe more of his knee banged into the wall is what he was really just trying to kind of massage the pain away. Welcome in, Storm Chaser. Kenneth. Hello. Appreciate you for joining us. Another ball. This one drops just in front of Adolis after running deep on that one. I don't think he was going to try to make a dive at that one, even though I think he probably could have gotten a better break on that ball. I think Garcia was still feeling the effects of the wall on that one and couldn't get up there in time to catch that ball from Soto. Looking a little bit at his elbow, too, a little bit. Looks like he's fine, though. And this might be it for Burke. Looks like Bochy is going out there. I wonder if they're going to go with Spores here. Burke is indeed done. Goes 2 full innings. On the hook for the loss right now after the homer to Sanchez. But Padres in front in the bottom of the 6th, 4-3, as they try to contend here in the National League. Again, they're sit 5.5 games back here in the wild card, as you can see it highlighted on the screen there. Cubs are in a little bit better spot. They're with a winning record right now, only 3.5 back. If I had to say which are more likely to, which of these 3 teams is most likely to get into the postseason, Philly, Chicago, or San Diego, first choice, Philadelphia. Second choice, Chicago. Third, San Diego. And you still have all these other teams to contend with as well. Arizona, Miami, Cincinnati, San Francisco, Milwaukee if they can't hold on to the division. Just a tough road for San Diego, but I understand all the the money they've outlaid to try to make a contender this season. It's just tough to see them selling on the season like the New York Mets have. They don't necessarily have that same type of an owner where they can cut checks for that type of deal, and they don't really have players that fit that description either. They're not going to trade guys like Bogarts or Machado. Soto, they just acquired last trade deadline. Way too early to move him. You're not going to get even a close to a representative deal for him. And I think you're left with Snell. You're left with Hader as the possibilities, if you do decide to sell, to move those guys on. Outside of that, they're really going to have to sit right where they are and hope to make a run here at the postseason with the roster they have. Thoughts on Rangers Cards trade and on what the Cards are getting back. Really like the trade for both sides. Rangers add another starting pitcher, which is what they absolutely need right now. Their rotation's been pretty much the worst among the American League contenders since the All-Star break, even before that, for a better part of a month and a half now. So bringing in Scherzer, bringing in Montgomery, Eovaldi will be back in probably about a week and a half or so. Then they'll have a pretty good 1-2-3 option that they can go with. Hopefully Gray can find it. He was fantastic for the first 10 starts of the season. His last 6 or 7 starts, he's got an ERA over 6. Dunning, while he was great out of the bullpen and great for his first 6 starts of the season, he has not looked the same. He's got an ERA also a little bit higher as well. Heaney's kind of had an up and down year. He'll have one bad inning and then strike out 8 over the next 4. So I think Heaney might be ticketed for a bullpen role, allow his stuff to play up, and when those other starters start to struggle, they can quickly switch and go to the lefty in Heaney or put Dunning back in the bullpen as well and kind of help out their bullpen long relief situation, kind of add to the bullpen by subtracting from their rotation and kind of solve things that way here at the deadline as well. As for Chris Stratton, I think it's just a depth piece, middle relief option, somebody with some somebody with experience dealing with Bruce Bochy that he can rely on to at least know what he needs to do. Not saying he's going to be a difference maker back there, but he might be somebody who can get you through. Say you're losing 6-1 in the 5th inning, you can bring in Chris Stratton to eat an inning or two, and hopefully your offense kind of picks back up and gets you back in the game, makes it 6-4. Like in this one, it's 4-3 right now. The Brock Burke role that you just saw would probably be Chris Stratton after that Cardinals trade. Pops this one up as Anderson gets the flyout. He was called up with the Eovaldi decision to move him to the IL. Garcia records the out, and we go to the top of the 7th. As far as what the Cardinals are getting back, really like the prospect they're getting in Sagassi. I think he's really started to blossom as a prospect overall. He's kind of your headliner for that package. But for me, the piece I would really like if I'm a Cardinals fan is Roby. While his ERA looks a little inflated, and you're like, is he really that good of a pitcher? Yes, he is that good of a pitcher. His outlying numbers look really good. His stuff really plays up. And I think that ERA number, if you look at his fielding and pitching, will give you a better idea of what his numbers really would look like, as he advances through the upper levels of the minors. I think Roby's got a bright future. Going to take some time, though. Both of those players are not major league ready. Then, of course, the reliever, John King. He was originally going to be involved in that Joey Gallo deal. Originally was scratched from that deal because of health concerns. They ended up including Rodriguez in that as well. Joely Rodriguez to the Yankees to be able to get that deal done a couple of years ago. But John King, still a very good pitcher, kind of a sinker baller. Probably going to pitch more to contact than anything else. Really relies on ground ball outs more than anything else. The one issue he's had with at the major league level is because you live by the ground ball, you also die by the ground ball. So every now and again he'll have an inning where he gets 8 ground balls in a row, but they all find a hole, and that's what's been killing him on the Rangers the Rangers bullpen for them. They really like the stuff that he has. He's been able to control it really well. Doesn't really strike out a lot of guys, so that's been the one bugaboo for him. But he's a really good sinker ball pitcher. So if you play good defense behind him, and he's able to actually get the ball to go to those guys, you should do pretty well with your bullpen piece. But for me, I really like the trade for them because they give up a couple of guys who are rentals and get some really nice long-term pieces back and a relief arm to go back into that bullpen with the pieces they're giving away here at the deadline. And he also has a little bit of control left on that as well for John King. But Rangers cleared the 40-man spot by sending John King in this trade for bringing in those guys. So good on the Rangers. Really excited for what they're going to do. The rest of this deadline, I think they're going to add at least one more bullpen piece. They're hoping for somebody like a Hader or a Bednar. I'm not sure if they'll get that. I think they'll end up going for a guy like Kean Middleton from the Chicago White Sox. I still think they need one more bat, and then the question becomes, are you comfortable with Sam Huff behind the plate as your backup catcher? Or do you go to the Cardinals and say, hey, we'll take on the money of Wilson Contreras. If you eat a little bit of that money, we'll give you a small prospect like we did with TK Roby, that ilk or that level of prospect in order to bring in Wilson Contreras. And then you have Contreras and Garver as your tandem behind the plate if Jonah Heim can't come back. If he can, well, then you've acquired your DH type hitter at the deadline right there in Wilson Contreras as well. So something like that would be very nice. Will Teoscar Hernandez be traded back to the Blue Jays? Actually, that could happen. It's not going to be for the same package, obviously. Teoscar's had a really down year. I don't think it's going to cost a whole lot to get, but he could be one of the pieces that would interest the Blue Jays here at the deadline if they want to bring him back and see if they can get something done. Feel like the Rangers need to add a DH as well. Not sure if Heim will be back. I agree with you there. I think the Rangers really need to figure out, what the health of their team is going to look like. With Eovaldi, Seager, with Jonah Heim as well. I'm very curious to see, what the Rangers look like, say, in a couple of days, just health-wise. Seager should be back, but I do think the Rangers need to add one more bat. If I'm the Rangers, I would look for a corner outfield DH type. I floated the idea this offseason of going after a guy like Yelich or Bryant. Bryant makes no sense, hasn't played well this year, injured right now. As for Yelich, $26 million, I thought at the time that would have been more palatable, but after the acquisitions they've made, the money they've spent, I don't think Yelich is really an option either. He's had a nice year, but I'm not willing to eat $26 million and have a no-trade clause on my hands and have him on my roster for the next, 6 years? If he regresses once again, you're really stuck with him, and then you've got guys coming and he might be blocked. So guys like Evan Carter, Wyatt Langford that are coming through your minors, Zavala, Gutierrez, all really good, high-quality outfielders. I'm expecting them to try to trade one or two of those guys, some of the middle infield prospects as well. Justin Foscue comes to mind as far as guys that could be moved here at the deadline for them to add a DH-type bat or, top-end bullpen type of arm like Josh Hader or David Bednar. But Pirates are trying to hold on to Keller and Bednar. We'll see if they ultimately move him. Nathaniel Lowe works a leadoff walk. Wilson works for the second straight day. It'll be Adolis Garcia, who had that great couple of plays defensively. Every time we seem to see these great plays on SportsCenter, they do the great defensive play, and then we see the great offensive play. So Rangers fans hoping for a 2-run home run here for Adolis Garcia. Michael, welcome back. Nicky Lopez was indeed moved to the Braves for Taylor Hearn. I think this was a little bit of a jam shot from Garcia, a little soft floater out into center. First out of the inning here in the 7th. Tommy Pham going to be moved by the deadline. I think that is likely at this point. But there are a lot of guys, a lot of corner outfield bats, a lot of players that match that type of player that are going to be moved. And I'm just not sure all of them get moved. He might be one of the guys that ultimately stays with the Mets, but I think he'll probably get traded more likely than not. Kind of refreshing our pages here just before we hang it up. Going to rest my voice for about an hour or two. Got a Zoom call with the family anyway, and going to have some fun with that here in a moment. But as I stated earlier, we will be back tonight at 8:30 to kind of recap some more trades. Once Sunday night's games are over anyway, the Sunday night baseball game is on, we could probably see some more trade talk as well. So hopefully tonight we have some more trades to discuss. But again, the 3 trades now that we've seen so far today. The Rangers adding Jordan Montgomery and Chris Stratton in exchange for Thomas Sagassi, John King, and Tikoa Roby. And the Toronto Blue Jays adding Jordan Hicks in exchange for the number 7 prospect in the Jays system and another prospect as well. And then we just saw the Nicky Lopez trade to go to the Atlanta Braves for Taylor Hearn. Double play there by Josh Young once again. He's struggling offensively, as I said. And we go to the bottom of the 7th. Nate Pearson will be moved. I don't think so. I think Pearson might actually be held on to as kind of a bullpen option for Toronto as they kind of close down their season. I think they need bullpen pieces. I don't think they're looking to subtract from that bullpen. Even though Pearson was just called back up, I think he's a piece that could really give them some impact back there. He has a lot of stuff in that arm. I'm just wondering if he's able to convert that to more of a bullpen role rather than a starter. But appreciate you guys joining us. Again, we'll be live tonight at 8:30. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Mariners beating the Diamondbacks, as you can see, 4-0. Looks like the Pirates beat the Phillies 6-4. Marlins 8-6 over the Tigers. But appreciate you guys for joining us here today. Again, we'll be live again at 8:30 this evening. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at UpsideSN. You can find us on Facebook, Upside Sports Network as well. And make sure on Tuesday to join us then. We'll be live all day long for you guys, starting at 8 a.m. all the way through the trade deadline, probably about an hour and a half after that. And then we'll do a recap show later on that evening as well. So thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you guys a little later this evening. Y'all have a great day. We'll see you guys shortly.